Hi, everyone. My name is John Willits, and welcome to the ITP Skype for Business webinar. I'm going to get started here in just a minute. Looks like we have most of the attendees online. I have muted the phone for everybody just to avoid a lot of the background noise. So I will allow a little bit of time at the end here if we wanted to run through some questions and answers, and you can certainly give us a call at ITP or shoot me an email after the call. So I know some of you have been on prior webinars on Mimecast for Outlook, for example. So welcome back if you attended some of the prior webinars. Just a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm a consulting engineer at ITP, and I work mainly on the development and application and training side. So it's good to see a few familiar faces here. And I just wanted to, again, thank you for taking a little bit of time this afternoon to attend the webinar. I am recording this as well, so if there's other people that in your office that are interested in viewing this webinar for more information, we'll send you a link at the end that you can view the video or download the video, and others can watch it as well. So over the next 30-45 minutes or so, I'll be talking about Skype for Business, and initially, I'm going to provide you with just kind of a quick overview, general information about Skype, and kind of run through a few useful configuration options. And following that, we're going to take a look using Skype itself to do some basic chat and screen sharing. So I'll show you how you can run and set that up within your organization. And then finally, I'll set up a Skype online meeting and show you how you can set that up and run through some of the options that you have available there as well. So if you wanted to set up a meeting for doing a screen share or video chat or something like that with either colleagues or people outside of your office. I will be using live copies of Outlook and Skype, so it's not a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that, and I'm going to be jumping around from system to system here, so hopefully we won't run into any issues at all. And you're going to be seeing a lot of pictures of dogs. You can see one of ours is in the background here. So I've used those for the various Skype accounts. So if you hate looking at pictures of dogs, it's going to be kind of a rough seminar probably. And that'll be the last bad pun I use. So, as I mentioned at the end, if you have any questions or anything after this, just give me a call or shoot me an email after the webinar. So, just general information, just wanted to talk a little bit about what Skype for Business is. So, Skype for Business is an application that comes with the Office 365 suite. So, if you're subscribed to Office 365 with really just about any of the Office 365 plans, you do have Skype for Business available on your system. So if you've installed it from Office 365, if you installed the Office suite, it's already installed on your workstation. It is available as well on tablets and phones and pretty much any device out there. So you do have the full application available to you, really regardless of what method you're using to access your system. So Skype itself, it's expanded over the years, and it gives you a number of options. The main function, or one of the main functions, is to use it as just a simple instant message or chat system. So we'll run through that, and I'll show you how you can send messages back and forth. But there's a lot more to the application. You can use it as a collaboration tool. So it's really useful in terms of if you want to share your screen with others in your organization, and even provide remote access to other people while you're chatting with them. So we, for example, use that all the time at our office. If somebody's at a client site and we're chatting with one of the other engineers, we can share screens and view information with each other. It's also used pretty frequently, and again, we use it a lot for online meetings. So you're able to set up online meetings within Skype, invite other individuals either within your organization or outside your organization, and have them connect in. There's an optional audio conferencing component that I'll mention a little bit when we get to that part, but it's included with some of the Office plans, with some of the other Office 365 plans. It's just an add-on. And finally, there's a number of phone systems that will integrate pretty tightly with Skype if you're interested in using that. So that's something else that if you wanted to see a demonstration of any of that, just give our office a call and we can either come out to your office with some phones or you could swing by our office and take a look. So what I'd like to do initially here is take a look at just the basic interface Skype and a couple of the configuration options. There's a lot that you can configure within Skype. We're obviously not going to run through all of that today. But initially when you launch Skype, so if you have it installed on your system and you've never run it before, go ahead and click on Start, type in Skype and pop up the Skype for Business, it's called. And the first time you launch it, you'll be prompted for your email address and potentially your network password, depending on how your systems are set up. Once you do that for the first time, it'll be set. And you won't have to do that. It'll log in automatically. And in fact, it'll start up with Windows automatically by default as well. You can turn that off, and I'll show you that in just a second. So once you've got Skype for Business up and running, it's going to look similar to what you see on the screen here over on the right side. And there's just a few things that I want to run through just in the interface in general. In terms of the contacts that you have in here, it does talk to Outlook and Exchange, and we'll read that contact information from that system. So you can add your own contacts in here pretty easily by using this Find Someone box. This will do a lookup. It does a lookup to Outlook and Exchange, and we'll search for names, email addresses, phone information, just as you start typing it in. So for example, and you can see a couple groups down here, I've got my favorites and other contacts, but for example, if I start typing in a name, so Steve Miller at our office is actually on this webinar here, so I'm gonna go ahead and if I start typing in Steve's name in here, you can see how it's pulling up a number of different individuals, and here's Steve right here. So if you're looking for somebody in the organization, you can go ahead and just start typing in the name. And if I go ahead and right-click on it, you can see I can add it either to my favorites or I can add it to a contact list, and I can create as many contact lists. Those contact lists are just groups as I'd like. So if Steve is going to be a favorite and I want him up near the top, I can go ahead and say add to favorites, and you'll see he appears under favorites right under my own name there. Other contacts I mentioned, that's a group as well. That's just one of the other groups that's set up by default. And then I created my own called Personal here. You can create as many groups as you'd like by using this little icon in the upper right corner here. And you can see that I can either add contacts or I can create a new group. So I can create another group here and give it whatever name I'd like. So if this is Milwaukee, I can go ahead and do that, and I've got a Milwaukee group. And when I add a new contact now, it'll give me the option to add to that Milwaukee group. I can also drag and drop. You can see that you can drag and drop people from one group to another as well. One other kind of cool feature is if you have groups set up in Exchange on your system, so in Outlook, when you start typing in an email address, if you've got a group set up called administrators or engineers or attorneys or something like that, you can add that entire group by just doing a search up there as well. So if I were to start typing in engineers, you can see that I've got a number of different selections here. So you can see we've got it broken down by different groups of engineers. So I can go ahead and I can actually add the entire group as well. So I can add it to my contact list here. And that'll add all the individuals in that particular group. You can also remove them, obviously, just by right-clicking on them and selecting remove as well if you want to take them out of your groups there. So contact management is pretty straightforward. There's a couple tabs across the top here that you can see. So you can sort it by status, and we'll talk about status in just a second, but that'll tell whether the individual is away from their system or in front of their system, or they've got it set to do not disturb. There's also a tab called relationships, and relationships determines essentially how easily they can kind of break into your group there, so or into your chat. So if I'm doing a presentation right now, for example, and I've got it set to do not disturb, people that are listed in my work group are able to break in and pop up a message to me. Other individuals aren't able to do so if I've got it set to do not disturb. And again, we'll talk about status in just a little bit, but you can drag and drop individuals to those different security levels as well. Okay. Notice too, when I've been hovering on top of these individuals that are listed here, I do have a lot of options in terms of the right click. A lot of those options are also available if I just hover, and you can see a few icons across here. And then there's a little more options here. So, so just about all of the options to see via the right click are going to be available just by hovering on top of the name as well. And one thing to notice too is if I go down to this privacy relationship, that's that relationships tab that I just mentioned earlier, you can see I've got change privacy relationship, and I do have the ability to adjust that relationship here instead of dragging and dropping. And the nice thing about going in here is it actually shows me what each one of those relationship levels mean. So you can kind of think of those relationship levels as sort of security access. So, so in terms of managing the contacts list, let me stop that. Sorry about that. Okay. So in terms of managing the contact lists, it's a pretty straightforward process to add and remove individuals to those different contact groupings. So the next thing I wanted to look at is just in terms of the general interface here, a couple other items that I think are important when you're using Skype. Number one is this status. So you can see next to every one of these names, there's like a little green check mark here next to Steve's name, and you can see there's a little yellow symbol with a clock there next to my name. So that's your current status. And the status actually picks up and reads your Outlook calendar by default. So what that means is, for example, on Steve's calendar right here, there's a green check mark, so he probably doesn't have anything on his Outlook calendar at the moment. So if he had an appointment at 1 o'clock on his calendar, it would show up as red. So it would show that he was busy. So by default, again, it picks up on your Outlook calendar automatically. You can override that though. So if you look up at the very top here, you've got a few options. One of them is this drop down that says available. And if I go ahead and click on it, you can see I've got a whole bunch of different options. So I can force Skype to set a status to whatever I'd like. So if I am going to be working on something and I don't want people sending me messages, I can set it to do not disturb, and it'll have that little circle, that red circle with the line through it. So when other people are looking at Skype and they see your contact in there, they're going to see that you have it set to do not disturb. And as I mentioned, that's where the relationship comes in just a little bit, in that people that are set in your work group are able to actually still send you a message even though they see it says do not disturb, whereas others won't be able to actually send you a message. You'll be notified that they attempted to send a message, but it won't break into what you're doing there. So that's the status. If you do manually set your status to override the Outlook calendar, after 24 hours, it'll automatically start using your Outlook calendar again, or you can hit reset status, and then it'll force it to look up to your calendar. And I'll show you an option in just a minute or so to where you can configure whether you want it to even read your Outlook calendar at all. You do have a couple other options. You can set your location in here by typing really whatever you'd like. So when people are looking at your contact information, it'll tell where you are. If you wanted to, that's just an optional item you can set. There's another optional one up across the top that says what's happening today. So you can type in whatever you'd like up there, and that'll also show underneath the name. So actually Steve is set to note right there for his comment up across the top there in terms of what's going on. So the other thing that I wanted to run through are just a couple quick settings in here before we go into a chat session, and I'll run through that. So you can see you've got a little gear symbol to the right side and a little drop down menu as well. So if you click on the little gear symbol, it takes you into all of the different Skype settings. We're obviously not going to run through all of these, but just a couple really quick ones that I wanted to point out here. So under personal, this is where your email address is set. So if you did that incorrectly or need to change it to a different account, you can do that. This is checked by default to automatically start the app when I log into Windows. So if you uncheck that, if you don't want it starting every time you boot up Windows and you just want to start Skype when you feel like running that, you can uncheck that box so it doesn't load with Windows automatically. You also have an option down here. This is what I mentioned earlier, update the presence based on my calendar information. So it will synchronize on my system with Outlook and set the status accordingly. If you uncheck that, it doesn't look to that, and you can always set your status manually. And related to status too, one other one that you may want to check is how long it waits before it sets you to inactive. So for example, if you look back here, this one that I have set to John Willits here, you can see it says inactive for 15 minutes, so it turns it yellow. You can change the inactive status time as well, how long it waits before it changes you to inactive. And the last thing I just wanted to quickly show you in here is the picture. So you can go ahead and set your picture here, and this picture is what appears to other people. So you can see we're actually doing a little Star Trek theme in our office, which is why Steve has the original Star Trek crew in there. But you can change your picture right here just by clicking Edit or Remove Picture, and that'll actually log you into Office 365 online and take you right to the spot where you can upload a picture for that as well. So they recommend a certain size of about 640 by 640 for the resolution of the picture. So that picture will actually appear in Skype in terms of when you're doing a phone conference as well, if they don't have video turned on. So so you probably want to make sure to set it to something that's appropriate for other people that you're going to be inviting to the meetings. So those are just a few of the things that I wanted to point out in the settings here. Go ahead and cancel that. The last thing I want to show you just right on the screen here are a couple of these other icons that you have across the top. You can see that you've got a calendar icon, and that's going to actually show you upcoming Skype meetings. So these are, I've got a bunch of just sample ones that I had set up that are coming up later today, and you can just hit join to join those. We're going to walk through creating a meeting in just a couple minutes here as well. There's also a item up here that says conversations, and it's going to show you a list of all the different conversations you've had in Skype, either video conferences or text conference or chat, instant messaging. That also appears in Outlook. So one thing that's really nice about Skype that that's always a concern with instant messaging is what happens to my old messages. I want to make sure I can access all that information in those conversation histories, and that's the reason a lot of people stick with email, because they want to make sure they have a history of everything. So Skype actually does track all of the conversation histories, so your instant messages back and forth, and it puts it in here in Skype, but it actually stores it in Outlook as well. So if I go into my Outlook inbox here, you can see there's a conversation history folder. So you'll see that I'm logged in as the demo account here. If I go ahead and click on conversation history, it actually shows me a conversation history of all of the different messages that I've done back and forth. And it's fully searchable. So you can see up across the top here, it says search conversation history. So, so you're not going to lose those instant messages that you send back and forth using Skype. All that information is stored on the server, just like Exchange messages would be stored on the server. So, I'm going to go ahead and minimize Outlook then again. So in terms of the interface, those are the main items I wanted to talk about. Again, if you have questions about other things as you start using it in the interface itself, just let us know. But what I'd like to do now is just start up a chat conversation. And I'm sort of going to be chatting with myself here, just because I want you to see what it looks like from both ends. So what it looks like on the recipient end when the message comes in. And the way that I've done that is I've got a remote session into another workstation here. So if I click on that, this is another system here that I'm connected to. So I can move that around, and here's our main screen over here. So on this other system, I'm logged in as John. On this main system that we've been looking at here, I'm logged in as demo. So if I wanted to send a message now to the account here that's listed as John, couple ways I can initiate the chat session. I can right-click on it and select Send an IM. And as I mentioned before, you've got all of these buttons that pop up when you hover on top of the picture. So if I want to initiate a chat session, I can go ahead and just click on Send an IM to John. Pops up a window on my end. Notice nothing really popped up yet on John's end here. But as soon as I type something, and if I just hit Enter or click on this Send, it'll send that information over. Notice now on that system, on John's system here, we've got a little pop-up that appeared in the corner to either reply or ignore. So you can go ahead and hit Reply, and it pops up the conversation. So we can see it on both ends here. And we can chat back and forth. Okay, so, and from here it works like a lot of other IM systems where you're, I'm sure you've all used a million times on your phone, where you're just sending text messages back and forth. And it has, kind of some of the similar functionality. So you've got all the little emoticons down there. But you can chat back and forth, and again, it'll save that conversation history for you as well. Notice at the top here, we've got this item that says 2 participants. So if I click on that, that'll actually give me a list of everybody that's currently in this chat session. And from here, I can actually invite other individuals into the chat if I'd like. So if I click on Invite More People, you can see that it's showing a lot of my favorites. I can go ahead and select somebody and hit OK, and it'll pop it up, and then we'll have an additional participant in there. Okay. So now we have all 3 people in there that can chat back and forth. Okay, and you can see when somebody's typing a message, you just type something in, it pops up and indicates that somebody's typing some information. So you do have a lot of other pretty cool features that are available with the chat, with just the IM, and it's a lot of the same functions that you're going to see when you set up an online meeting. So you do have, some of the basics down here, things like setting a message to high importance. They didn't include low importance for a change. I don't think anybody has ever sent an Outlook message as low importance. So they finally removed that. But you can type text, or you can paste text as well into this message area. The other kind of cool thing is that you can actually, if you want to just quickly embed a picture in there or send an image or something like that, you can do that as well just by pasting it in there. So for example, if I go ahead and I'm just going to use this Windows snipping tool. If you've never seen the Windows snipping tool, it's installed on all Windows systems. It's a great way to grab a little bit of a screenshot and put it into the clipboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the snipping tool and say New, and I'll just grab a small area of the screen here. So we'll just grab that icon. So that just puts it in my clipboard. So now if I go back into the chat window, I can either right-click and paste or just hit Control-V. So I went ahead and pasted it in there, and it should pop up all the attachment on all the ends. So you can see there's a couple attachments in there, and anyone can go ahead and open those attachments as well. Okay. So you can send attachments really quickly just by pasting that information in there. You also have an attach button as well. So if I go ahead and click on attach, it actually lets me attach whatever file I'd like. So if I want to send somebody a file, a Word document, for example, here's a test Word document, I can go ahead and do that and send the attachment here. And then everybody on the other end will see somebody added an attachment, and then they can go ahead and open any one of these attachments if they'd like to. So that'll open it right in Word, for example. Okay. So you are able to add attachments there. One other really cool feature, and something that we use all the time and that you can use in your Skype meetings when you're doing a presentation, with people inside the office or outside the office, is to do the screen sharing. And so you can see that you've got a few buttons down here at the bottom of our chat window, and you've got this little ellipses button which gives you more options. If you look over here, you'll see that this button, this little one that looks like a share screen, gives you the opportunity to share a number of different items. So we did add attachments. That was just by clicking on that little paperclip symbol that I used earlier. Share the desktop will share your entire desktop with somebody else that's in your chat. So if I go ahead and do this and I hit share my desktop, you can see I actually get sort of infinite windows going down here looking at the remote system. So what I'm looking at is this is John's system that we're looking at, and it's sharing the screen that I'm working on right here. So the nice thing about doing something like this is you're able to really work with other individuals and show them your screen and pull up documents. So if I go into Word or another application here, it'll show up on that other system. So if I go ahead and open up this Word document, you'll see that that Word document back there is open on the other system as well. So they're really seeing everything that you're doing on your screen. So this is a good way, if you want, one way that you can work and collaborate with others in that you're able to bring up documents that everybody can see. The other thing that you would want to do, notice on the remote system, on John's system here, I have a request control button. And on our own system here, up across the very top, I have a button here that says give control that I'm currently showing. And I can give control to other people that are in the presentation here. So if I give control to John, then that system would be able to take control of my system, and we could work on that Word document together. We can work on whatever's up on the screen together. So we actually, again, use that at our office quite a bit. If we're assisting other people that might be out at another office and we want to work with them, they can just pop up and do a screen share right in Skype by just clicking on that share screen button. Okay, so if you did give control, you can take back control. It's dimmed out right now because I didn't give control of the other system, but you are able to take back control as well. And up across the top, you can also see there's a stop sharing here. So if I go ahead and click on stop sharing, you can see on that remote system now, on John's system, the screen disappeared, and you can click on this hide stage button, and that just gets rid of that staging area where it's sharing the screen. So it's actually pretty straightforward process to share the screen. Again, you just click on this button here and you've got share desktop. You can also share just a specific window. So if you don't want the person to see all of the information on your system, you can just share a specific window as well. Okay. Notes in My Notes are related to OneNote. We're not really going to kind of jump into OneNote today. That's another large application. It's actually kind of a cool application, but you can share your OneNote notebooks and work on those as well together. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you that's in the chat here, a few other options that you can set in here. If I click on this More Options, you can see a couple of things. Number one, I've got a Start Recording option here. So if I wanted to go ahead and record the session, I can do so. It'll pop up a little recording icon up there and it'll start recording it. So since I'm actually in this one with Steve, I'm going to go ahead and just for audio purposes, I'm going to remove one of the other participants in there. So you can see I've got John on the remote system here. If I right click on any of the participants, I can actually remove that person from the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now it's just Steve and I that are in the chat. And it says on John's system here that I've been removed from the meeting. So, so now if I go ahead and hit Start Recording, I don't have the recording enabled, but I don't have audio enabled. But you can see it says recording has started, and it started recording the session down there as well. And you can see there's a little pause and a stop button down here in the corner. And you can go ahead and, if you'd like, you can go ahead and hit stop recording after a certain period of time if you just want to record part of it. And it does pop up a message saying recording has stopped, and to click on it if you want to view the progress. So what it does is it actually needs to convert that into a video format for you. And it starts doing that right away. So you can see that it says processing. And it's really just storing it in a video folder. You can see right here where it's storing it under my videos folder. So you can go ahead and play back any of those as well. I'm going to close that. And it'll actually let you know when it's finished processing the recording for that meeting. Okay. So one of the other things that I wanted to point out too, under this more options section that you can use, that's useful if you're doing a meeting with another individual and you just want to, kind of share a screen where you're freeform drawing information on it. You can actually use a whiteboard that's built into it as well. So I'm sorry, it's under the share here and then under more. And you'll see that you've got the whiteboard option up here. So you've got a whiteboard, a poll, and Q&A. So we're not really going to go into the poll and Q&A today, but you can set up a poll if you've got a lot of people on the call and you wanted to have them vote. You can set that up right away and hit start for the poll, and they can provide you with feedback, and you can share that and save that screen. But the whiteboard is probably the most useful feature they have here. If I go ahead and click on the whiteboard, you can see it pops up and it's showing me the participants over here. And again, I still have options just about everywhere that you see the participant list. You're going to have this invite more people option here. But it just gives you a blank screen that you can draw on. So a whiteboard, you can either click in there to start typing in text, or you can use a number of the drawing tools on here. And that shows up on everybody's screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and invite myself back in here. And if I go back and accept that. Now you can see on my remote system where I'm logged in as John, I've got that whiteboard up there as well. So anybody can go ahead and take control on the whiteboard and start drawing if they take over as presenter and start drawing. Okay. So I'm going to minimize that. Get back into that. And now it popped up and let me know that the recording is available. So that portion that I'm recording, it finished converting that to an audio and video file that you're able to use. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop sharing here to get rid of that whiteboard. And then I'm going to click on hide stage again to get rid of that. All right. So I am going to, again, bump off this remote John Willits here. So I'm going to right click and remove from the meeting again. And a couple other things that I wanted to point out here. One is under the ellipses that I mentioned earlier. This is where you can set, a number of options, including font size, things like that, the recording. The one thing that I want to point out here, though, is this meeting entry info. If you did want to send the meeting invite to somebody outside the office, or you want to send, or you just want the general link or the information, you can click on this meeting entry info, and you can see this is where the actual meeting is taking place. So you can actually send this link to somebody. You can copy it all to your clipboard, paste it in an email. Somebody else outside the office could dial in and connect into this particular meeting. So this is available in when you set up a Skype meeting as well, within Outlook, and we're going to look at that in just a couple minutes. But this meeting entry info is really useful if you want to pop up the information related to the chat or the meeting that you're currently in. So the next thing I wanted to show you here in this chat, and again, all of these things are available in the meetings that we're going to look at. You've got a couple buttons down here for an audio call and for a video call. If you go ahead and hit call, it's going to try to conference in whoever's in the particular meeting. Now you can do this as well just by hovering on top of any one of these names and initiating a call or a video chat as well. But you can do it right from here too. So if I go ahead and click on call, and I can do a Skype call, and it should call Steve. So you can see here's my portrait, and this is the portrait that Steve is using. So that started a video call, and he just clicked on the button to show his video as well. So you can click on the video over here to start your video. So what he did is he clicked on start video, and now you can see if I click here, start my video, then we have the video chat up and running. Okay, so you can see both of us in here. So you've got all these controls down here at the bottom to either mute your own mic or stop your own video. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video. And that turns it off, and it just switches it back to your portrait again. Okay. And then again, you can mute your mic if you'd like, or you can just hit the little hang up button, and that stops that. Okay. And then you can rejoin as well if you'd like there, or you can just close that. So when you have the chat window up, you have a lot of flexibility. So you can initiate the video calls, you can put whiteboards up, you can share your screen, which again, I find incredibly useful. We use that all the time. And all of those functions are going to be available within a Skype meeting that you set up if you schedule a meeting. So what I'm going to do next, I'd like to actually initiate a Skype meeting instead of just popping this up via a chat. So I'm going to go ahead and close this conversation window. It lets me. And this, for whatever reason, it's actually not letting me close that. I'm actually going to click on the ellipses and end the meeting from Skype right here. And it's still not letting me close it. Well, I'm not sure why it's not letting me close the chat, but for whatever reason, I can't close it. But what I'd like to walk through, though, is scheduling a meeting. So a couple ways that you can do that. You can either initiate it right from within Skype here to create a new meeting, and you can create a new meeting with an individual just by selecting, by hovering on top of them, clicking on the ellipses and clicking schedule a meeting. But really all that does is that pops that up in Outlook for you, and then it creates a new Skype meeting from Outlook. So I tend to prefer doing it right from within Outlook because then I can just pick my time right away and just select to make sure that it's a Skype meeting. There's also an options button in Outlook that I want to show you quickly as we're setting up the meeting, because there's actually a couple options in there that you might want to look at before you schedule the meeting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into Outlook, and I'm going to switch over to my calendar. And I'm going to start a meeting. So if I go ahead and scroll down here, and I'm going to start something at, let's say, 3 o'clock here. You would calendar it just like you're starting a standard meeting. Now, you can either double click to create just a regular meeting and turn it into a Skype meeting, or you can see there's a button right up here on your toolbar that should be available if you've got Skype installed that says new Skype meeting. So either one of those will bring up the standard window that you see here for creating a new meeting in Outlook. When you've got Skype running though, and it's creating a Skype meeting, there's a couple things to note here. Number one, it'll just set the location to Skype meeting by default for you. Here I'm going to go ahead and I'll send it to we're logged in as demo, so I'm going to send it to my account here at ITP. You can also, the thing about doing it, setting up a meeting like this is it's nice for setting this up for people outside the office. So the chat works really well for people inside the office in your own organization. But if you're trying to get people in a session a shared session, you're going to want to be able to send it to people outside your office as well. So you can send it to external addresses. Those people that you're sending it to, so I'll just send it to my Gmail account there. Those people that you're sending it to outside the office will receive a link that they can click on their system. And even if they don't have Skype, when they click on that link, and I'll actually show you this, it'll pop up and prompt to install a little web application that they can run. So if they go ahead and run that, then they're able to join the meeting even without having Skype for Business installed. If the person you're sending it to does have Skype for Business installed and they're outside the organization, it'll prompt them as to what they want to do, run it from an app or run it from their own Skype for Business application. So I'm going to go ahead and you can just put a subject line in here. And you can obviously adjust this information just like you would normally in Outlook. The message body itself, this is what it's going to look like to the recipient here. So they're going to get a specific link to click on that they can access the meeting. And you notice that there's also this join by phone number. So that join by phone is only going to be available if you have the audio conferencing set up on your system. So the audio conferencing, I mentioned it really at the very beginning of the webinar here, that audio conferencing is available. It's included with the Office 365, what's called the E5, the Enterprise 5 plans. With the other Enterprise plans or the other plans with Office 365, if you have like an E3 or E1, for those particular ones, you can add it on for whichever users you're interested. It's like a small monthly fee. I think it's in the range of $5 a user, but and you can add it to whichever users would like that. But it gives you the ability to have it set up with a number that they can dial into using a regular phone. So if you don't have that, you don't have the audio conferencing, you're just going to get that link that says join Skype meeting. You can still set up the audio conferences, just that people that are on the receiving end are going to want to make sure they're using something that has attached to their system. So a headset, audio mic, something like that, so they're able to communicate with you. So when I send this, I'm going to go ahead and before I send this, actually, what I wanted to point out is this meeting options button up at the top here. I would definitely recommend checking this, especially the first few times that you set up these Skype meetings to determine really how you want your meetings to be configured. There's a few options in here. So if I go ahead and click on meeting options, it's really mainly under this permissions tab. So the first one is whether you want people to sort of wait in the lobby area before you let them into the meeting. By default, it's set to anyone with no restrictions, which means, as soon as somebody dials in, they're able to, get into the meeting right away and they show up in there. And they're not kind of like in a waiting or a holding area. And they could actually start chatting with each other even. So if you want it set so that people are waiting in the lobby, you can set it to only me, the meeting organizer. Then when you join the meeting as the organizer, you're able to let people into the lobby. You have a little button down there. Or, I'm sorry, let people out of the lobby into the meeting. You'll have a little button down there to allow them into the meeting. One of the other things to point out here is the presenter. So again, the default is anyone, no restrictions. So if you don't go in here and change that, that means that anybody can really sort of take control of the meeting or throw up a whiteboard or do whatever they'd like. So if it's, if it's an internal meeting where it's more casual and it's just people at your organization and you don't really care, leave it set to anyone. However, you do have other options here. So just people from my organization can take control, or only me, the organizer. If you do that, then you show up as the presenter. Everybody else, when they join, shows up as attendees. And attendees don't have the same sort of rights. They really can't go in there and start, putting up the whiteboard or sharing screens without you giving them permission to do so. So if you want more control for your meetings, make sure you go into your settings and permissions and change these, because by default, both of these are set to kind of having wide open meetings where anybody can do anything. Then you also have options where you can mute people by default automatically or turn off instant messaging if you want. So you can set all of those. And then you can hit OK, or remember settings will set it so that it defaults to that going forward. And then once you've got it set up, you can go ahead and hit send, and it sends out just like a regular Outlook appointment with this additional Skype information at the bottom. So if I go ahead and hit send, you can see that it created the meeting right over here. Okay. So once we have the meeting set up, you can go in there and we can take a look at what it looks like when people actually join the meeting from both types of locations here. So I'm going to connect into, first I'm going to join the meeting as the organizer, the presenter here. And then I'm going to go ahead and log in as those attendees. So a couple ways to join the meeting. Number one, I mentioned you've got the meetings are all listed right here. So you can go ahead and it should show up in here, and that's our 3 o'clock one here. I can go ahead and hit join from here, and it'll join it right from within Skype here. You can double click on your calendar and follow the link as well. So, you know, if I double click on the calendar, you've got the join Skype meeting. So we'll do that on the other system. So I'm going to join it from here. And when you first join the meeting, you have a few different options in terms of how you want it to handle audio and video. So if you select that Use Skype for Business, full audio and video experience, it's going to pull up the full application here, which is what we're running, Skype for Business. You do have the option to have it call you. So you can put in, if you want the audio portion through there, you can click on that and enter a telephone number, and it'll actually give you a call back right away. Or you can say, don't join the audio at all. So I'll leave it set to the full experience here and hit OK. And you can see it pops it up and shows me that I'm the only participant in there right now. So as other people join the meeting now, so I'm going to hop back into our demo system here. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So this is the John Willits account here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and it should show the new Skype meeting that was created right here. And I can go ahead and join that right from within Skype. This is a person that has Skype for Business installed. And notice now, because I set that option for the lobby, I'm stuck in the lobby here until the meeting organizer actually allows me to come in. So if I switch back now to the main computer here, you can see that it lets me know, hey, somebody's waiting in the lobby, and you can go ahead and admit them. And you can see under the participant list now that the other people show up as attendees, and they don't have the same access rights. And in fact, when you're the organizer, you have participant actions in the side here, and you can click on that to perform different actions, you know, with the group. So you can go ahead and hide the names if you don't want people to see each other's names. Make everyone except yourself an attendee, which is already the case for this particular one. Mute the entire audience, and set it so that people can't IM each other while you're doing it. Turn off the potential for them to pop up video. So you have a lot of different options available under this participant options once you set that up. So the other participant then that I wanted to show you what it looks like. So if somebody, so I sent it to that Gmail account. So that's another system I'm going to hop into real quickly here. And you can see this is the new sample meeting that I sent myself on another computer. Now this person's using Gmail. They're not within our organization at all. So they're really going to want to use either this number for calling in, or to click on the actual Skype to join the Skype meeting itself. To get the video portion of it, they're going to want to click on this link that says join Skype meeting. And when you do this, and this is what it'll look like for somebody, you know, outside your office that may not have Skype for Business. You can, if you have Skype for Business, they can click on that to join that way. Otherwise, it pops up and says, you know, okay, do you want to run the Skype for Meetings app that just runs from the browser? So if I go ahead and click on that, it's just going to prompt the person for their name. So I'll just say this is like that. So again, we're waiting in the lobby as that user as well. So I'm going to go ahead and admit that person. So now that attendee is listed there as well, the John Gmail account. And if I switch back to that system, I don't have an audio device because I'm connected remotely, but they would go ahead and click connect, and then it'll pop up, and they would be able to talk, through the system itself, or they can use the phone dial-in number. And if they click on that, then they get that telephone number. That's the one that was sent to that person, in that Gmail as well. So they can go ahead and dial that phone number, enter the conference ID, and then they'll be able to talk through their phone, and they'll be able to see the Skype meeting as well. All right, I'm going to close that. All right, so so I guess I just dropped myself off that call as that third person. But once you're in the Skype meeting here, you have almost the same options. So we're not going to run through all these again, but you have the same options in terms of sharing information. So you can share the desktop, share a window. I don't think I mentioned this the last time, but you can select as co-author an Office document. The only challenging part of that is that it does, if you're co-authoring like that, it does require that everybody have access. It'll try to access a document in Microsoft OneDrive. So everybody needs to have access to be able to modify that as well and be signed into it. So my recommendation would probably be to just, if you want to do that and work on a document together, if you just share that window, your Word window or Excel window, or share your desktop, and then allow the other person to access it, then you'll both be able to collaborate on a document at the same time. And really, you can open up any type of document or any application. So if you're running, your billing system and you want to have two people in there at the same time, co-authoring an Office doc isn't really going to help you. So sharing the window or sharing the desktop is really probably the better approach for something like that. You can always, if you do want to co-author a document that's online in SharePoint or OneDrive, you can actually both just open up that document directly and start making changes to it. You don't have to do it through Skype. If both people will be able to modify it at the same time. So otherwise, the attachments are the options are very similar in terms of attachments. You have chat available, sharing your screen, and you've got the same type of options here. So you can start recording, end the meeting over here as well, and that'll stop that meeting. I'm going to go ahead and try to end the meeting. Not sure why I'm having issues ending meetings on here, but it's not closing them properly for me. So that's what I wanted to run through in terms of Skype for Business and just general usage. As I mentioned earlier, it's available on just about every platform, all applications, devices. So I have it installed on my phone, for example. So when I'm on the road, if I get a Skype call or there's a chat or any of those things, it'll pop up automatically for me on my phone, and I can use the Skype application, as well as the video and audio chat through there. The only other thing I wanted to mention too is that Skype for Business has been around for a long time, and I suspect it's going to continue to be around for a long time. But if you look out on the internet and you're looking at just general information on Skype for Business, you'll see that Microsoft, kind of as a very long-term plan, is trying to move people to this application called Microsoft Teams, which is another collaboration tool that's included with Office 365. So sometimes Microsoft likes to throw a lot of applications out there and see what's going to work best for people. So they've migrated a lot of the Skype functionality to Microsoft Teams, but they haven't done all of it yet. So they've got a roadmap to eventually get all of that to Teams, but it's not quite there yet. But Teams is, I can show you just really quickly here. I've got it installed on this system right here. If I pop up Teams, just to kind of show you what it looks like. It's another application that you should have as part of your Office 365 suite. But it does have a chat built in as well. But again, it lacks some of the functionality of Skype at this point. But they've tried to move everything into one system here, so that a lot of your documents, teams, groups, you can set up different announcement boards, things like that. So it's sort of an all-in-one application. But again, it's not quite there yet, and but you'll probably see discussions if you start digging more into Skype for Business. You'll probably see some discussions about Microsoft trying to get people to migrate a little bit more to Teams and see how that's working for people. So that's really all I had for Skype for Business.